The Giants' 2026 schedule is officially out. It is finalized. Here is everything that you need to know. First and most important thing, and it's what we always discuss with the schedule release, is the primetime games. The Giants have 4 primetime games on their schedule. They're going to play the Cowboys in week 1 on Sunday Night Football, which will be exciting. It will be a nice introduction to Harbaugh's time in New York to see how this team could perform on a national setting when everybody is going to be watching them. You get to face off with your most hated rival in a meaningful moment. I always hated when the Giants would have games against teams in other divisions. It's so much more exciting when they get to square off with an NFC East team, especially the Cowboys, and especially on Sunday Night Football. I don't love that in week 2, their next primetime game, their next national game is against a Rams team that is expected to be a Super Bowl contender. I would have much preferred, and obviously I don't have any say in this, but it would have been a lot nicer if they could have come off that Cowboys game and then faced either the Titans or the Cardinals, who they have in week 3 and week 4. To have to square off and to pivot to deal with this juggernaut of a Rams team, they're going to be really good. At the very least, they're going to start the season really hot with how good their roster is, with how well Matthew Stafford played last year. So to have that draw while you're trying to figure out your footing in a first time with a new head coach, it's going to be a real tough game. I would imagine, not to be too negative, it's probably going to be one of their early losses. In week 10, their Thursday Night Football game against the Commanders, I like the timing of it when it showed up here on the schedule, that it's not too late in the season. It's not too early. It's a little bit after the bye week. It's 2 weeks after the bye week, and it's against the Commanders too, which this should be a really tense matchup, assuming if the Giants are doing really well and the Commanders are doing really well, it will have implications potentially for the playoffs. And then the last game that they have in week 16 on Monday Night Football for a primetime game is against the Detroit Lions. I'm kind of shocked that the Giants didn't get a single primetime game against the Eagles. 4 just feels like a low amount. I think that for the fact that the past couple of years, the Giants have been really bad when they've played these primetime games, and it's been embarrassing and just bad TV that some of these networks probably don't want to take the risk if they're going through growing pains in their first year. But there is a chance, though, that in week 18, there's a flex listed here for the game against the Eagles to be the 9th or the 10th with a time to be determined. So there is a chance that this ends up being a primetime matchup against the Eagles. Again, I am just generally shocked knowing that the Eagles games have generally been some of the better games of the NFL season, even when the Giants have been bad. Think back to last year when the Giants in a primetime setting, well, let me be more specific. When they've been in a primetime setting, they have been some of the best games during the season. And last year, the Thursday Night Football game where the Giants upset the Eagles when Dart played really well and Cam Scadaboo played really well, that was a moment that a lot of people were talking about the Giants. And that was a game that a lot of people were tapped into and watching. And then after that, the buzz for the Giants really died off because they started to struggle. So to that point, because it's such a heated rivalry, you would have thought that more of these networks with primetime games would have been trying to bid to get those opportunities. I will say it is a little bit generally disappointing that they only got one Sunday Night Football game and they ended up with 2 Monday Night Football games. I was at least hoping that they would maybe get one more guaranteed Sunday night game. Maybe that would have been against the Eagles, but it is what it is. The other big takeaway that I think is important that people should talk about, I always preach, and the reason why I bring this up is from a betting perspective, but I always preach the importance of body clock. When you have West Coast teams playing in later slots, it's an advantage for them. When you have a West Coast team coming east to play in an early time slot at 1 o'clock, it's an advantage for the East Coast teams. So with that in mind, the Giants have 2 major advantages with 2 1 o'clock kickoffs in week 4 against the Arizona Cardinals and in week 13 against the San Francisco 49ers. And you get the 49ers in a 1 o'clock slot towards the end of the season. Now, it doesn't guarantee that it's going to be a victory, but think back to the Chargers win that the Giants had. The Chargers looked half asleep during that game. It doesn't happen for every single team, but it is a potential trend that could work in the Giants' favor. In terms of where the bye week landed, I think that this was a really perfect slot for the bye week. I feel like whenever you have the later bye week and maybe the team starts to sputter a little bit, you end up going through a stretch where you're just waiting for that break. As someone, when I played in college, plenty of times where we had late bye weeks and you're struggling, you're just praying that you get to that bye week. So to have it in week 8 allows for them after their first 7 games to get a breather and then to lock in for the final stretch. But most importantly, there is a legitimate opportunity here for the Giants to start extremely hot. There is a legit shot on the table here for this Giants team to theoretically start 5-2. This Dallas Cowboys team, we don't know what to expect that they are. Is this an early first game coach bump that you get against the Cowboys that you come out swinging? I don't think that they're going to beat the Rams. That would be their first loss. You should dog the Titans. You should beat the Arizona Cardinals. You should especially dominate the Arizona Cardinals. The Commanders are a beatable team, is therefore they're undergoing their own roster changes. And the Saints are also a young team that is trying to figure out its identity. I don't think that they're going to beat the Texans. Hence, where I see a 5-2 opening stretch, if everything goes according to plan. It is not a guarantee that you go 5-2. You need a lot of things to go your way. But you have 4 of your first 6 games at home. You have 5 of the first 7 games against teams that had losing records a year ago. That is as advantageous of an opening stretch before your bye week that you could have possibly gotten. It is on the table. There is such a realistic chance. And I know that in every year that the Giants, that you hope that they perform well, you come in thinking, well, if X, Y, or Z happens before the bye week, we'll have a great record. This is one of the most legit opportunities that they could have been handed because the opponents are favorable, having multiple home matchups is favorable, and to have a stretch that lines you up for a bye week where you catch your breath and then you gear down for what could be a pretty tough final stretch of the season. With that being said, my final takeaway from this schedule release, the end season stretch is a bit tough. You have, starting in week 13, the month of December to January, this is where the tough stretch starts. You have 49ers at home. You travel to Seattle. Then you come back home to Cleveland, against Cleveland. Then you travel to face off on Monday Night Football against the Lions. And then you come another road game against the Cowboys, and then a home game against the Eagles. Minus the Browns game, all of those games, all those teams that you're facing in those matchups are all likely going to be teams in the playoff hunt at the very least. Most of these teams should be in the mix for the top of their divisions. This is going to be a really difficult final stretch. So if the Giants want to make the playoffs, they need to start hot. They're going to deal with a lot of adversity in December and January. Take advantage of the gimmies and the favorable home stretch that you have at the beginning of the year, and you can absolutely be a 9 or 10 win playoff team that sneaks their way in. The last bit that does kind of play into that with the difficult final run that you have, having 2 division opponents in the final 2 weeks is a double-edged sword. It is a negative because you're facing 2 teams in your division that always play you tough, even in years where maybe either team might be struggling, which I don't imagine that will happen for at least the Eagles. Maybe it will for the Cowboys. You're going to get a legitimate challenge here. But the positive side of it is if you win both of those games, that could be the final push that you need to move up in the division standings and to sneak your way into the playoffs. I think that it is totally plausible to see that the Giants could at least be an 8-9 football team, but we will do a full record prediction video as the next video I do that'll come out on Monday. Do me a favor, hit the like button on this video. If you agree with me, comment below what is your record prediction for the Giants in 2026, and also subscribe so you don't miss out on more content.